Good evening, councillors, members of the public. Before we commence the meeting, I'd like to draw your attention to the fire regulations which are on the screen behind me. Can you also please make sure your phones are switched off or to silent? Most grateful. Let's move on then rapidly, if we may, on to the business of the day. Minutes of the meeting, which took place on the 30th of September, have been laid on the table for the last 30 minutes. Is it your wish I sign them as a true record of that meeting? Thank you. Do so at the end of the meeting. Apologies for absence, Emma.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. And Emma again, declaration of interest.
None prior to the meeting.
Thank you very much. No one else?
Well, Hazelmere Town Council.
Hazelmere Town Council, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3. Thank you very much. Question from members of the public, Emma. Have there been any?
None received, Chairman.
Right, moving on. The quarterly appeals report. Louise, all yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will note from the agenda that 5 appeal decisions have been received in the last quarter. The first is at Broomfields on West End Lane in Frensham for the erection of a side extension. This was refused due to the loss of the separation between the two dwellings and the disproportionate additions that would fail to preserve the character of the original dwelling and would appear intrusive in the landscape. The inspector allowed the appeal, concluding that whilst there may be more than a 40% increase above the original dwelling, there would be no significant impact resulting from the prominence and scale of the buildings over and above that already permitted on the site. The second is at 1 Dockenfield Farm Cottages, and that was for the erection of a 2-storey side extension. This was refused because it would harm the open character of the countryside by reason of its scale, bulk and mass, and it would harm the beauty of the AGLV. Furthermore, the scale, bulk and mass would dominate the existing dwelling and unbalance the pair of semi-detached dwellings. The proposal would also fail to demonstrate the proposal would not cause harm to bats. The inspector had dismissed this appeal, agreeing with the council's reasons for refusal. The third is at Lane Top on Crosswater Lane. This was a certificate of lawfulness application for the construction of a single-storey extension to the existing building. This was refused because the council considered that the proposed extension extended beyond a side elevation. The inspector allowed the appeal, concluding that although the decision was finely balanced, he considered that the elevation to be a rear elevation, and therefore the proposal complied with the requirements of the GPDO. The next is at Hankley Edge on Tilford Road. This was refused because it would be inappropriate green belt development due to its increase in floor space, height, bulk and mass, and it would harm the intrinsic beauty of the AOMB and AGLV, and also it failed to demonstrate that it would not cause harm to bats. The inspector dismissed this appeal and again agreed with the council's decision. The final appeal decision was at land adjoining Winding Wood on Tilford Road for the erection of a stables and a hay store following the demolition of the existing stable building. This was refused as it was inappropriate greenbelt development that would harm the openness of the greenbelt and would impact on the intrinsic beauty of the AOMB and the AGLV. The inspector allowed this appeal, concluding that the development would be appropriate greenbelt development and taking into consideration the location of the proposal in the same position as the existing stable, the established screening, the shallow pitched roof, the timber cladding and the T-shaped design, the proposal would preserve the open character of the greenbelt and would preserve the beauty of the AOMB and the AGLV. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Jim Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Just going back to the third property on the appeals list, Lane Top, Crosswater Lane, Churt. I feel for the officers on this particular application because I remember looking at it at the time. I know it was done under delegated powers, but it wasn't obvious which was the front. In fact, I thought it was the other way round. And I believe the decision made was unfortunate, to say the least. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Adams.
I'd just like to make a comment on the last one. I don't think that, in fact, there has been any established use for the grazing of horses on that site. There've never been any horses on it for many years, so I mean, he has geese, he has fireworks, he has bonfires, but no horses, and I can't see that geese need a stable.
I think we might be hearing more of this one in weeks and months to come. So if no other questions, could I ask you to note the report? Thank you very much. Thank you, Louise. Quarterly enforcement report, Victoria Chillarton.
Thank you, Chairman. There are, councillors, there are no verbal updates on the site-specific enforcement cases we have. You may well have noted, top of page 15, with regards to our local performance indicator, that there has been a dip in performance in the last quarter, although the target has been met. Indeed, actually, it has been slightly exceeded. It's 70%, and we've achieved 75% in the last quarter. I would just like to say that the reason for this is that there has been, in the quarter, there was a diversion of resources from enforcement to the area planning teams. This is a temporary measure and has now come to an end. However, you may have seen from top of page 14, the summary of the caseload in the last quarter is now 206, and this is actually the lowest caseload that we have had. Thank you very much, councillors, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Councillor Inchbold.
Yes, land beside the Winterton Arms in Chiddingfold. If my memory serves me correctly, the bundle has now been with legal services for getting on for a year. Could I ask, are there any plans to celebrate the anniversary in any way? I would be happy to donate a bottle of Prosecco to get the party started.
Thank you, Chairman. What we'll have to do is to speak to the litigation solicitor about the case, because it's a complicated one, because we've got issues with car sale, that cars appear, disappear, that sort of thing. So we have to make sure that we've got the evidence correctly. So it's some of it has to be monitoring over a period of time to make sure we've got the evidence to prove that he's actually operating the activities that we think he is on site.
If I may come back, Chairman, I would be very happy to provide you with photographic evidence whenever there's a car out there for sale, and of course the photograph will have a date on it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Adams.
I'd like to congratulate planning enforcement on the lowest figure of outstanding cases. I think that's very well done. I note there's new management in planning enforcement at present, and congratulations.
Yes, I'd like to second that, and also point out that two of the enforcement team have been working as planning officers during the period, so it's particularly gratifying that the team, being that much smaller, have carried out the work and reduced the number of cases pending. So thank you very much indeed, Victoria. Yeah. So moving on then, members, note the performance of the planning enforcement, please. Thank you. All right, moving on now to Elizabeth Sims for an update on government guidance or legislation that the committee should be aware of.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, there is a key update for you. Since your last meeting, the government has published the Housing and Planning Bill, which you may have become aware of, which is now going to work its way through Parliament. So this is really giving you heads up in relation to the key measures that are being put forward, just in relation to development control. Firstly, they're proposing the introduction of a new form of permission in principle for small-scale housing developments on brownfield land. It will apply on a site that is allocated for housing in a development plan or a neighbourhood plan, and thereafter only technical details consent would be needed, rather like reserved matters at present. So the principle will be established by this new form of consent. To inform this, local planning authorities will need to keep a register of brownfield land, which will demonstrate that land is available for housing. And this will be land available and suitable for at least 5 dwellings with no clear constraints on development. The second point coming out of the bill is the government has announced that it will make the current permitted development rights for changes from office to residential permanent from May 2016. It was intended to cease at that point. So we're expecting an amendment to the General Permitted Development Order shortly to put that in place. The demolition of office blocks to achieve residential is also being proposed. So at the moment it's just about changes of use, but the new proposal is to allow actual demolition of existing blocks to allow the introduction of residential as part of this new extended permission. And in addition, similar rights are to be introduced from light industrial and laundrettes, which sounds a bit random, but that's what they're proposing, to housing, all subject to prior approval procedures as the existing change of use permitted development is. And thirdly, the new bill requires local planning authorities to promote the supply of starter homes for first-time buyers and for residential development to contain a specified proportion of starter homes. And starter homes are to become a part of the definition of affordable housing. So we're expecting an amendment to the NPPF to pick that change of definition up. There will be a requirement for local planning authorities to make provision for serviced plots for self-build and custom build in new residential developments. And a final change is that the poorly performing authorities' special measures regime is going to be extended from just dealing with majors, as it is at the moment, to include non-major development, which I presume will be minors, which is 1 dwelling to 9 dwellings. But we're waiting for the full detail on that. So it's basically been extended across the range of types of application other than extremely small-scale development. So officers will keep members informed of progress of the bill as it moves through Parliament. I hope this is helpful. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Coburn.
Yes, I'm intrigued by all these changes, which I know is a bill at the moment, not law. But at the moment, when you sell a house, the lawyers for both parties will not just accept that anything has been done under permitted development rights. So the government keeps bringing in all these rights, but when you actually come and buy and sell, the lawyer will say, no, I need a certificate to prove that you had, permission to do that. How on earth are we going to join all this up? Because if we're getting more and more PDs and similar things, and the lawyers, obviously I'm dealing with conveyancing here, but of course if it's office blocks to residential, you're going to have the same thing. How on earth are we going to convince them further down the line that they don't need to go back? Because at the moment we're getting a load in, aren't we, for certificates to prove that what was done was lawful. So it's actually adding to your load in a funny way rather than easing your load.
Can I just go on a little bit? Shops and laundries, whatever, becoming free for conversion to living accommodation. Does that include car parking? Or is that also ignored again?
Unless they introduce it as a prior approval criterion, and it's not likely because it's currently some of the changes of use in town centres are simply just changes of use. Then we won't be able to take that into account. But there are some changes of use where highway considerations are relevant, and we have argued that parking availability, if it relates to highway safety matters, can be material to that, but really depends on whether the Highway Authority are prepared to back us on that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. At the moment, I think all that can happen is that the applicants or the people selling the houses have to then come to us for a certificate. There's no other way around it, really. It's for them to apply to the council so they can have that certificate before they actually try to sell the property. But there's no way around it other than that. So. No, not at the
Well, hang on.
moment.
It just seems madness at the moment, putting these measures through, which is meant to speed up the process and lessen the load.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's working the other way because everyone doesn't believe that these measures are concrete enough and therefore comes in for certificates, which adds to your load. So,
It does.
you know, I mean, somewhere along the line, somebody surely got to see a bit of sense and actually join the two bits together.
Oh, one would hope so. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As Elizabeth said, this is a housing bill as well as a planning bill. The housing element of the bill is incredibly contentious at the moment, and I suspect it's going to have a very tortuous passage through both houses. So I have absolutely no idea at the moment when this is ever likely to reach the statute books. It could be we have to wait quite a long time unless they decide they're going to bulldoze it through.
Right. Thank you all very much. Let's move on to the application for planning permission. In the event of any site inspection being necessary as a result of consideration of the application at this meeting, they'll be held on the 24th of November at a time to be agreed. Moving on to the planning applications. Item B1, WA 2015-1713, Yew Tree Cottage, Kingswood Lane, Hindhead. Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. This is for the erection of a detached garage and store following the demolition of the existing garage and the outbuildings on the site. The site is located on the north-eastern side of Kingswood Lane, close to the junction with Portsmouth Road. The site is occupied by a detached two-storey dwelling and a detached garage. This photo is taken from the south of the site, looking towards the main house, which is here, and just shows the entrance in front of the house. This second photo is taken from the west of the site, again looking towards the entrance, which is here. This photo is taken directly in front of the site, looking towards the main house and the existing garage, which is just positioned beyond the gate. This photo is taken within the existing garden. It's looking towards the proposed house, and the location of the proposed garage is approximately here. This plot plan shows the existing house, which is here in the centre. And this is the proposed outbuilding, which is here outlined in red in an L shape. The existing garage and the three outbuildings, which are positioned here, here and here, are all proposed to be removed as part of the proposal. The demolished buildings have a floor area of 90 square metres, and the proposed garage has a floor area of 101 square metres. 3 car parking spaces, a garden store, a log store, and a storage area are proposed as part of the garage. An external staircase is proposed, leading to a B store in the loft. The garage would have the greatest depth of 13 metres and the greatest width of 11.1 metres, with a footprint of 101 square metres. The building would have a maximum height of 5.3 metres and would have a dormer in the front elevation. The building would have painted render walls, a plain clay tile roof and tile hanging, which would match the existing property. There has been a previously approved scheme on the site, and these plans show the previously approved scheme. This is a material consideration in the determination of this application. The amended scheme has a slightly larger footprint of 8.4 square metres, and as you can see from the plan, the log store, which was positioned here originally, is now positioned down here on the amended scheme, and an external staircase has been added to the side. This slide shows the previously approved elevations. In addition to the external staircase, which is added to the side, the height of the building has been increased to 4.5 metres from 3.4 metres to allow the additional storage in the roof space. Can I draw members' attention to the update sheet, which outlines that Hazelmere Town Council has raised no objection in relation to the proposal? And the matters of principal and technical judgment are the principle of the development, the effect on the SPAs, highways and parking, and biodiversity. The matters of members' judgment this evening are countryside issues, the impact on the AONB and the AGLV, and the impact on residential amenity. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Louise. Members, starting with Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at the block plan, is there any way we can tell where the boundaries of this property are? Because, I know you've got sort of a zigzag on the left. I see, yeah, it goes round like that. Okay. Fine. I'm glad to see we've got a condition here on condition 3, which is a very positive move. However, looking at that site, moving it down there, it probably would open it up for development of as part of the garden. I've got no objection to the building itself, but I'm aware that this could be possibly another development on this site in future. Okay, there's nothing we can do about that, I don't think. So that's all I've got to say, really. Thanks.
I can say, should there be any other application on site, that will be determined by the officers and the committee. So we are looking purely at this application. Any other members wish to make comment? Nope. In that case, we'll move to the revised recommendation that subject, no, in fact, the conditions 1 to 6 and informatives 1 to 2 are set out in the report, that permission be granted. Can I have a show of hands? Those in favour?
That's unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. In that case, that completes the meeting. Thank you all very much indeed.